Hello, hello. Good morning. Hippies. I'm having hash and eggs for breakfast. About you? I can't wait. When we're done, I'm going to cook me some hash and eggs. Oh! I ran out of eggs yesterday. I guess KJ isn't having hash and eggs for breakfast. I wonder if I got one floating around the back of the fridge. It's old. Stink. I don't want pancakes. I want eggs. I don't have any eggs, egg whites, nothing. My shelves are bare. All right, guys. Good morning. September 18th, rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. Nehemiah 3:1 through 32, 445 BC. Then Eliashib the high priest and other priests started to rebuild at the Sheep Gate. They dedicated it and set up its doors, building the wall as far as the Tower of the 100, which they dedicated to the Tower of Hananel, Zachar, son of Imri. The Fish Gate was built by the sons of Hassenaah. They laid the beams, set up its doors, and installed its bolts and bars. Meremoth, son of Uriah and grandson of Hakaz, repaired the next section of wall. Beside him were Meshullam, son of Berechiah and grandson of Meshezabel, and then Zadok, son of Bana. Next were the people from Tekoa, though their leaders refused to work with the construction supervisors. The old city gate was repaired by Joiada, son of Paseah, and Meshullam, son of Besodiah. They laid beams, set up its doors, and installed its bolts and bars. Next to them were Melatiah from Gibeon, Jadon from Maranoth, and people from Gibeon. I'm so lost. Melatiah from Gibeon, Jadon from Maranoth, people from Gibeon, and people from Mizpah, the headquarters of the governor of the province west of the Euphrates River. Next, Uziel, son of Herahiah, a goldsmith by trade, who also worked on the wall. Beyond him was Hananiah, a manufacturer of perfumes. They left out a section of Jerusalem as they built the broad wall. Rephaiah, son of Hur, the leader of half the district of Jerusalem, was next to them on the wall. Next, Jedaiah, son of Haramath, repaired the wall across from his own house, and next to him was Hattush, son of Hashabniah. Then came Melchijah, son of Haram, and Hashab, son of Pahath Moab, who repaired another section of the wall and the Tower of the Ovens. Shallum, son of Halasheth, and his daughter repaired the next section. He was the leader of the other half of the district of Jerusalem. The valley gate was repaired by the people from Zanoah, led by Hanan. They set up its doors and installed its bolts and bars. They also repaired the 1,500 feet of wall to the Dung Gate. The Dung Gate was repaired by Melchijah, son of Rechab, and the leader of Beth Hakaram district. He rebuilt it, set up its doors, and installed its bolts and bars. The Fountain Gate was repaired by Shallum, son of Kolhozah, the leader of the Mizpah district. He rebuilt it, roofed it, set up its doors, and installed its bolts and bars. Then he repaired the wall of the pool of Siloam, near the king's garden. And he rebuilt the wall as far as the stairs that descend from the city of David. Next to him was Nehemiah, son of Azbuk, the leader of the half-district of Beth Zur. He rebuilt the wall from the place across from the tombs of David's family as far as the water reservoir and the house of the warriors. Next to him, repairs were made by a group of Levites working under the supervision of Rehum, son of Bani. Then came Hashabiah, the leader of half the district of Keilah, who supervised the building of the wall on behalf of his own district. Next down the line were his countrymen, led by Benui, son of Henadad, the leader of the other half of the district of Keilah. Next to them, Ezer, son of Jeshua, the leader of Mizpah, repaired another section of wall across from the ascent to the armory near the angle in the wall. Next to him was Baruch, son of Zabiah, who zealously repaired an additional section from the angle of the door of the house of Eliashib the high priest. Meremoth, son of Uriah and grandson of Hakaz, rebuilt another section of the wall extending from the door of Eliashib's house to the end of the house. The next repairs were made by the priests from the surrounding region. After them, Benjamin and Hashab repaired the section across from their houses, and Azariah, son of Messiah and grandson of Ananiah, repaired the sections across from his house. Next was Benui, son of Henadad, who rebuilt another section from the wall from Azariah's house to the angle of the corner. Palel, son of Uzai, carried on the work from a point opposite the angle and the tower that projects from the king's upper house beside the court of the guard. Next to him were Pedaiah, son of Parash, with the temple servants living on the hill of Ophel, who repaired the wall as far as a point across from the water gate to the east and the projecting tower. Then came the people of Tekoa, who repaired another section across from the great projecting tower and over the wall of Ophel. Above the horse gate, the priests repaired the wall. Each one repaired the section immediately across from his house. Next, Zadok, son of Immer, also rebuilt the wall across from his own house, and beyond him was Shemaiah, son of Shechaniah, the gatekeeper of the east gate. Next, Hananiah, son of Shelemiah, and Hanan, the sixth son of Zalaph, repaired another section, while Meshullam, son of Berechiah, rebuilt the wall across from where he lived. Malchijah, one of the goldsmiths, repaired the wall as far as the housing for the temple servants and merchants across from the inspection gate. Then he continued as far as the upper room at the corner. The other goldsmith and merchants repaired the wall from that corner to the sheep gate. I think, in other words, they all worked together. Everybody did their part and brought all the little pieces to one big piece. It's what we teach our kids in kindergarten, right? Work together. Enemies opposed the rebuilding. Nehemiah 4, 1-23, 445 BC. Sanballat was very angry when he learned that we were rebuilding the wall. He flew into a rage and mocked the Jews, saying in front of his friends and Sumerian army officers, "What does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think they're doing? Do they think they can build the wall in a single day just by offering a few sacrifices? Do they actually think they can make something of stones from a rubbish heap, and charred ones at that?" Tobiah the Ammonite, who was standing beside him, remarked, "That stone wall would collapse even if a fox walked along the top of it." Then I prayed, "Hear us, our God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back on their own heads, and may they themselves become captives in a foreign land. Do not ignore their guilt. Do not blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in front of the builders." At last the wall was completed to half its height around the entire city, for the people had worked with enthusiasm. But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs, Ammonites, and Ashdodites heard that the work was going ahead and that gaps in the wall in Jerusalem were being repaired, they were furious. They all made plans to come and fight against Jerusalem and throw us into confusion. But we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves. Then the people of Judah began to complain. "The workers are getting tired, and there is so much rubble to be moved. We will never be able to build the wall by ourselves." Meanwhile, our enemies were saying, "Before they know what's happening, we will swoop down on them and kill them and end their work." The Jews who lived near the enemy came and told us again and again, "They will come from all directions and attack us." So I placed armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall in the exposed areas. I stationed the people to stand guard by families, armed with swords, spears, and bows. Then, as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, "Don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, and your daughters, your wives, and your homes." When our enemies heard that we knew of their plans and that God had frustrated them, we all returned to our work on the wall. But from then on, only half my men worked, while the other half stood guard with spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail. The leaders stationed themselves behind the people of Judah who were building the wall. The laborers carried on their work with one hand supporting their load and one hand holding a weapon. All the builders had a sword belted to their sides. The trumpeter stayed with me to sound the alarm. Then I explained to the nobles and officials and to all the people, "The work is very spread out, and we are wisely separated from each other along the wall. When you hear the blast of the trumpet, rush to wherever it is sounding, and then our God will fight for us." We worked early and late, from sunrise to sunset, and half the men were always on guard. I also told everyone living outside the walls to stay in Jerusalem. That way, they and their servants could help with guard duty at night and work during the day. During this time, none of us, not I, nor my relatives, nor my servants, nor the guards who were with me, ever took off our clothes. We carried our weapons with us at all times, even when we went for water. Nehemiah defends the oppressed. Nehemiah 5, 1-13, 445 BC. About this time, some of the men and their wives raised a cry of protest against their fellow Jews. They were saying, "We have such large families. We need more to survive." Others said, "We have mortgaged our fields, vineyards, and homes to get food during the famine." And others said, "We have had to borrow money on our fields and vineyards to pay our taxes. We belong to the same family as to those who are wealthy, and our children are just like theirs. Yet we must sell our children into slavery to get enough money to live. We have already sold some of our daughters, and we are helpless to do anything about it, for our fields and vineyards are already mortgaged to others." When I heard their complaints, I was very angry. After thinking it over, I spoke out against these nobles and officials. I told them, "You are hurting your own relatives by charging interest when they borrow money." Then I called a public meeting to deal with the problem. At the meeting, I said to them, "We are doing all we can to redeem our Jewish relatives who have had to sell themselves to pagan foreigners. But you are selling them back into slavery again. How often must we redeem them?" And they had nothing to say in their defense. Then I pressed further. What you are doing is not right. Should you not walk in the fear of our God in order to avoid being mocked by enemy nations? I myself, as well as my brothers and my workers, have been lending the people money and grain. But now let us stop this business of charging interest. You must restore the fields, vineyards, olive groves, and homes to them this very day, and repay the interest you charged when you lent them money, grain, new wine, and olive oil." They replied, "I will give back everything and demand nothing from the people. We will do as you say." Then I called the priests and made nobles and officials swear to do what they had promised. I shook out the folds of my robe and said, "If you fail to keep your promise, may God shake you like this from your homes and from your property." The whole assembly responded, "Amen," and they praised the Lord, and the people did as they had promised. Continued opposition to rebuilding. Nehemiah 6, 1-14, 445 BC. Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, and Arab, and the rest of the enemies found out that I had finished rebuilding the wall and that no gaps remained, though we had not yet set up the doors and the gates. So Sanballat and Geshem sent a message asking me to meet them at the villages in the plains of Ono. But I realized they were plotting to harm me, so I replied by sending this message to them: "I am engaged in great work, so I can't come. Why should I stop working to come and meet you?" 4 times they sent the same message, and each time I gave the same reply. The 5th time, Sanballat's servant came with an open letter in his hand, and this is what it said: "There is a rumor among the surrounding nations that Geshem tells me is true, that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you are rebuilding the wall. According to his reports, you plan to be their king. He also reports that you have appointed prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim about you, 'Look, there is a king in Judah.' You can be very sure that this report will get back to the king, so I suggest that you come and talk it over with me." I replied, "There is no truth in any part of your story. You are making up the whole thing." They were just trying to intimidate us, imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work. So I continued the work with even greater determination. Later, I went to visit Shemaiah, son of Delaiah, and grandson Mehetabel, who was confined to his home. He said, "Let us meet together inside the temple of God and bolt the doors shut. Your enemies are coming to kill you tonight." But I replied, "Should someone in my position run from danger? Should someone in my position enter the temple to save his life? No, I won't do it." I realized that God had not spoken to him, but that he had uttered this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. They were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. Then they would be able to accuse and discredit me. Remember, O my God, all the evil things that Tobiah and Sanballat have done. And remember Noadiah the prophet and all the prophets like her who have tried to intimidate me. The builders complete the wall. Nehemiah 6:15-7:3, 445 BC. So on October 2nd, the wall was finished, just 52 days after we had begun. When our enemies and the surrounding nations heard about it, they were frightened and humiliated. They realized this work had been done with the help of our God. During those 52 days, many letters went back and forth between Tobiah and the nobles of Judah. For many in Judah had sworn allegiance to him because their father-in-law was Shechaniah son of Era, and his son Jehohanan was married to the daughter of Meshullam son of Berechiah. They kept telling me about Tobiah's good deeds, and they told him everything I said, and Tobiah kept sending threatening letters to intimidate me. After the wall was finished and I had set up the doors and the gates, the gatekeepers, singers, and Levites were appointed. I gave the responsibility of governing Jerusalem to my brother Hanani, along with Hananiah, the commander of the fortress, for he was a faithful man who feared God more than most. I said to them, "Do not leave the gates open during the hottest part of the day, and even while the gatekeepers are on duty, have them shut and bar the doors. Appoint the residents of Jerusalem to act as guards, everyone on a regular watch. Some will serve at sentry posts and some in front of their own homes." Oh, have a safe trip. That'll be a fun visit. Mallory, have a safe trip. Okay. We are on... Oh, I got a wicked headache. Wicked. That's what you say when you're in Maine. Your headache is wicked. It's right here. Right here. All right. We are on page 15 of Breaking Free from Body Shame. We're in the chapter 1, Why Body Image is a Spiritual Issue. Okay. Now entering the brave space. Latasha Morrison, founder of Be the Bridge, was the first person to introduce me to the term brave space. I heard the term used in connection to anti-racism work, learning environments, and other avenues of the social justice conversation. Latasha may not have coined the term, but she was the first person to unpack the idea for me, and it absolutely shifted the way I move into important conversations. In a safe space, people feel comforted, and even comfortable. In a safe space, you can say what's real and true for you without implication or repercussion. The problem with being safe is that while it feels comforting, it's not fertile ground for growth. When we're comfortable, we tend to stay the same. In a brave space, there is an invitation to be who you are, where you're at, while being offered a challenge and room to grow. In a brave space, you accept the probability that you'll feel uncomfortable and that your discomfort will be productive. In a brave space, the tenderness and vulnerability you feel is ultimately productive because it leads you to growth. I perceive that we need to accept the tenets of a brave space in order to press into what God has for us next as it pertains to our bodies. We need to be able to say real and honest things about our bodies, but we also need to step onto ground that is ripe for growth. We need margin to move and expand, to plunge forward into freedom, not stand still where we are. So here's where we're headed. We're going to start by talking about what a kingdom-minded mentality looks like in regards to our bodies. We'll look at some of the other positive and negative ideas about the body that are inherent to our culture at large, testing them against the Word of God and looking at them in the light of eternity. We're going to dive into the past and sift through some of the moments wherein we and others have named our bodies against the will and truth of God. We'll ask God for grace to forgive those who have hurt us, and we'll accept His grace for the ways we've used our words as a weapon against ourselves and others. We'll go back to the original name God gave our bodies as a banner to live under for the rest of our days. Next, we're going to provide some much-needed rest for our bodies. Maybe not physical rest in the same sense that you're used to, but spiritual and emotional space wherein we stop provoking and begin preparing a place where we can repair. Restoration will follow this rest. As we seek restoration, we'll ask why we want to grow, and we'll utilize worship as a guide to experience abundance, freedom, and forward movement. Finally, we'll join one another in pressing into revival. We'll take our place among the throngs of women who are living in liberty as it pertains to their bodies, and we'll use our voices to bring others along with us. We'll use the weight of our freedom to create a wider path and firmer ground for all of us to stand on, and space for all of us to run. You may notice that we don't talk as much about the shame we feel as we do about the goodness with which we were created. This is intentional because we're going to be replacing lies with truth, trading our chains of condemnation for the certainty that our bodies have worth and value and beauty. We're going to do all of this in our good bodies, not just in our minds or in our spirits, but here, where we live, in these tents of flesh that house the Holy Spirit who raised Jesus Christ from the dead. We will join our friend and brother Jesus in proclaiming the year of the Lord's favor, binding up the brokenhearted, ushering in freedom for those who are held captive, and providing comfort for all who mourn here in our good bodies. Are you ready? Together, let's soak in these words about God's heart to proclaim freedom. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. Isaiah 61, 1 through 4. Okay, I'm going to finish off the chapter. So here's some questions to ask yourself. If your heart was a house with many rooms, what room would represent your body? What does that room look like? Is it cared for or hidden? Is it visited often? Is God invited into that room? What have you been told about your body? List the first 3 messages that come to mind. Is there someone in your life who loves her body simply because God made it? How has her friendship or relationship impacted your life? Words from our friends. This is RWP. Must be somebody's initials. Little me has a similar story to little Jess in that I vividly remember the time when I realized my body wasn't like those of others, and I'm still very aware of it. In the 30 years since I realized I don't fit the culture's body standard, I feel I should definitely be finished with what God must be teaching me about contentment, because that's how it works, right? That has got to be his ultimate goal, or certainly I would no longer be waiting for that pivotal heart change, or better yet, body change. I feel like what I constantly hear from others in the church is that I'm not experiencing total freedom because I still haven't reached the level of contentment he wants for me. In short, I'm still not quite spiritually mature, but I'm coming to realize that the truth really lies in his desire for me to see my body, his creation, as good, to treat it as good. And I'm getting there. He's been opening my eyes and changing my heart, and I'm so thankful to be in this brave space to continue that work. Jensine, this is from Jensine. Just the other day I was looking at my post 2 kids mom bod and pinching here, sucking in there, wishing away an inch or 2 at the waist and thighs. The way we perceive our motherhood and these spiritual and these physical vessels that brought life into the world is often out of lack, with the idea that we need to get our pre-baby bodies back, that we are missing out on something as moms. But what a reminder of the God-given abundance in both our life-giving bodies and our mission, that the extra is an overflow of grace so that we can keep giving, giving, giving. Okay, that is the end of chapter 1. So let's see, this session 1 is for chapter 1 and 2. So I think I'll look this over and see how best to navigate that through online. I would love to have open conversation with y'all about these sections, and I'm still thinking through how to do that, the best way to do that. Okay, you guys, thanks for joining me this morning. I love you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. I won't be live for breakfast today. It's Sunday and I don't usually do that. I do have a lot to do today. I have to film an air fryer commercial. I don't even know anymore. Oh my gosh. All right. If you haven't signed up for the free webinar that I have coming up on Tuesday, go ahead and do that. I may have to schedule another because I think I have maxed out my license. I think the registrations are huge, and so I think I may have to schedule a couple more because I've maxed out my space. So if you see that pop up, make sure you register. Okay, that's all. I realized several years ago I would apologize to people how I look. Wait, not as pretty as they were. I never noticed I was doing that, and it broke my heart. Not necessarily for me, but for my children, especially my girls that heard me say that. Yep. You're not alone, Tina. I think we all do it. We all make excuses for our body. Or I had a friend who every time I would tell her she looked nice, I'd say, and I know I do this as well, but I'd say, oh, I love your outfit. That looks so good on you. She could never just say, oh, thank you. It was always, well, I got it on clearance, and it's a little tight on my butt, and it shows a little more of my belly than I want, and I don't really like the way it shows my knees. I wish it were a little longer. And I'd always say, woman, just say thank you. Yeah, I suppose. She'd have to make excuses for it, like, well, it was just cheap. I bought it on clearance, and it's not like she couldn't accept that what she was wearing just made her look nice. There had to be more to the story. And I think that's true for a lot of us. I think a lot of us do that, oh, you look like you've lost weight. Well, not really. I wish I could lose more. I wish it was here instead of here. And I wish my butt wasn't still this big, or I wish my knees weren't still jiggly. And it's never just, oh, thanks. It's never just, yeah, I have. Look at me. It's never gratitude for how far we've come in our health journey. It's always, it's still not enough. And that's the same. That's for me. I work on that mindset all the time. I am learning more and more and more to appreciate what I have and to take care of it. There are things I'm finding myself being bothered by that didn't bother me before. Things like candy thrown at parades. I used to be like, ooh, give me some. Now I'm like, what are we doing to our kids? We're throwing candy at them as a celebration. Can we throw some pencils? I know they won't like it as much, but we are celebrating with poison. And so there are things that I'm noticing because I've started to appreciate this body that I've been given and take care of it, because I want it to be healed. I want it to be whole. I want it to be the best version, the healthiest version. I want to take care of it for what it deserves. I don't want my mansion to be messy. I want my mansion to be clean. This mansion is a little messy. I want this mansion to be clean. So I'm learning myself as we go through this, and I'm that girl. Changed my heart a whole lot. So anyway, all right. I love you all. Have a blessed day. Crying out loud. Stay on plan. It's Sunday. We don't go off plan the first day of the week. No, we don't. We stay on plan. I love you all. Have a blessed day. I'll see you tomorrow.